Aaron Boone, 2-year extension. So this year counts already, 25. This will extend him through the 2027 season. So Yankee fans, Booney is signed up for 3 more years to run the ship. Our thoughts, Kratz, your former skipper, is this good for him and for the Yanks?
Anytime you get an extension, it's good. Obviously, the question has to be 2 years when Counts got 5. I get it. Counts was a free agent, so maybe they had to push it, but I definitely pushed it with the dollars. I don't know. I have to reserve judgment until we hear how much he gets. I was hoping when I texted him today, congratulations, he would just give me his entire contract layout, but he didn't. So I don't know. So he gets this year and then 2 more, which essentially you don't want to go into the last year as a lame duck. So then you're back to the whole just a 2-year deal, basically. I don't know. I don't know what to say about the 2-year part of it.
I think it's all he wanted. I think the Yankees aren't going to give him 5 years. I think Aaron Boone has been there for a long time. And listen, that's 3 more years under the microscope in New York. And it's only going to get – they don't win. It's only going to get tougher and tougher. I think Aaron Boone is a great manager. I think he deserves more than this. I think he deserves a ton of money. But it's ironic that we talked about this yesterday and then boom, Boone signs an extension. So I'm happy for you, Aaron. I'm sure, listen, of course he wanted 5 years. But at the end of the day, this is basically a 3-year agreement that he has this year and 2 more years. So he's not a lame duck. He's got 2 more years after this one. And in 2 years, guess what? If he's doing a good job, he still loves it, and everything is good with his health, he can sign another 2-year extension. You just keep piling it on. I mean, I know that, yeah, we're a little surprised it was only a 2-year extension, but it's better than a no-year extension.
Sure. Well, is it? Because according to his boss, Brian Cashman, teams would have been going after him hard in the offseason if they let him
That's
get
why they didn't let him get there.
Free agency.
They didn't let him
I understand. But if they didn't let him get there by offering him more years, that would have been fine too. If he was interested in that, like you said, he might have just been like, I'm good. Let's just do 2 years, make this 3 total, and we'll keep trucking. But if the Yankees were like, yeah, we're doing 2, and he was saying, I want 5, like Craig Counsell, it wouldn't have been an unreasonable ask. And it could have gotten to a point where he said, okay, I guess I'll have to go to free agency. We didn't get to that point, but here's the next layer. AJ, does this affect Dave Roberts' contract negotiations? Because I think Dave is looking for something very different. I think Dave is saying 5 years, 50. I am worth $2 million more than the highest paid manager, and I am in this for the long term. There shouldn't be any disputes here. So if that's the case, then why does Booney only get 2? That's my only thought process here, is how the value is only 2 years for a manager like this.
I don't think it affects him. I think that Dave Roberts is in a different universe because of who he manages and the team that he manages. I think the Dodgers do things differently. The Dodgers don't look at other teams and say, oh, Aaron Boone only got 2 years. We're only going to give Dave Roberts 2 years. There's one huge difference. Dave Roberts has 2 World Series rings in his back pocket that Aaron Boone does not have as a manager. So I think Dave Roberts goes to them and they're going to figure it out. And whether, if Dave Roberts gets a 2, 3, 4-year deal, again, a lot of guys don't want to do this for the rest of their life. Maybe Aaron Boone just only wants to do this for 2 more years. He'll be what? Let's see, if I'm 48, he's a couple years older than me. So he'd be like 54-ish around then, 53, 54 when he gets to that point. I mean, he's had a nice life. He's made a lot of money. Maybe he doesn't want to do it more than 2 more years or 3 more years. Who knows? Maybe after 2 years, he's like, man, I really love this. Let's do it again if they're still having success. So to me, this isn't a knock on Aaron Boone, and this has no effect on Dave Roberts.
And it's not a knock on the Yankees for only giving him 2 years, too. You just hear Counts' 5-year deal, and you're like, all right, I assume that's what the next 2 best managers as far as success would get. I mean, both those guys have had a better resume than Counts, so you assume they would get more per year. Sometimes it's not all about the money and the years for guys. You don't just lock yourself up for that long. And that's a long time. Being in a big market, that is a draining season on you and your wife. It's you and your family. Also, when you talk about these contracts, you'd have to be remiss to talk about like, okay, Booney wants to stay around. Okay, well, what's his coaching staff going to look like? What's is the training staff getting taken care of? Not that it needs to be like dollar for dollar, But you sit there and you go, if I'm extending this guy as a team, do I have to extend everybody? Are we keeping everybody around, or is he his own separate entity? And then we're going to have, the organization's going to go in a different direction. So 2 years allows you to be there with the group that you have in place and go and do what you've been trying, what you just fell short of for the Yankees last year, and what you accomplished this past year for the Dodgers.
More in a minute, but first, a quick word from our sponsor of this video. Oh, Todd Father. Remember the good old days when we would have the cards in the binders, but then they'd get all messed up and we're trying to sell online and it's just real clunky? They really actually weren't the good old days, were they?
No, they were definitely not. But now there's a better way. The Arena Club has been dominant with this. You get to trade your cards, you could sell them. But the best part for me is getting them graded. I love everything about that. This new age of getting cards graded. You could display them on your online showroom, your mobile device. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the all-in-one trading card platform. You have to sign up for an account at arenaclub.com/foul. Just like Todd Father mentioned, there's a process that combines AI and human grading to get the job done. Right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul. Use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase. And now back to the video. Okay, so last thought here. If the Dodgers go to Dave Roberts and say, we're going to offer you 2 years after this, is that okay? And is it okay for Dave to be like, oh, hell no, I'm getting 5?
He can say whatever he wants, but if he wants to leave, he doesn't want to leave. He's an LA guy, he's a Southern California guy. I mean, I think it's fine for them to do that, but I think they'll figure out something in the middle. Counsell was kind of an outlier because he was a free agent and a team in his own division wanted him really badly, and they went out and paid for him and got him. So I just think Counsell was an outlier. Yes, he wants to move the managerial market, but some teams, again, don't value managers like that. So it's not like you're a free agent and you have Scott Boras negotiating for you against other teams. It just doesn't work out like that. And listen, Dave Roberts is going to be the Dodger manager for a while. They love him. He's a great guy. He's handled that team unbelievably well. I just don't see – he's not going anywhere anytime soon for me.
I don't see how he goes anywhere. 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. To me, I think he just needs to make more than what Counsell's making. I think that's only fair.
Do you think that there's a large difference in the good and the bad managers in the game? And I've talked to some fans. You do, right? Some fans are like, well, the price is going
I don't know
down
about a huge
there's
difference.
so many managers that can do
but
a good job.
There is a difference. I wouldn't say a huge difference. There is a difference.
I think there's a
100%
huge difference. I think there's a huge difference because you said good ones and the bad ones, and it's not necessarily tied to wins and losses. To me, there's definitely a huge difference. There's guys that are connected, engaged, able to change with the times and what the players' needs are, what the coaching staff's needs are, and they have to be fluid, and they can't just be like, this is the only way to do it. And if you don't do it my way, then you're out. Eventually, you're going to be the one that's out if you're constantly saying that. So you have to adapt. I mean, Buck's coming on. He knows about needing to adapt. Like, that's part of being a manager if you're going to do it for a long time, because there's always standards, but you can't just constantly be just one way. You have to learn how to get the most out of your players.
Okay.
I think, listen, we have Buck Showalter coming on. He's managing both New York teams. Let's ask him what it's like to manage New York. And even though he had, great rosters, or he didn't have great rosters at certain times, he didn't win. Everyone says, oh, well, Aaron Boone and Dave Roberts have these great teams. Well, guess what? It doesn't always work out. Even if you have the greatest so-called team in the world, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Of course. Do you think that Chris Woodward to Bruce Bochy was a major factor in the Rangers winning the World Series a couple of years ago?
Yes.
Me too.
Yes, and they got some better players.
But that doesn't make Chris Woodward a bad manager. It makes him not as good as what Bochy was able to unlock. They did get good players. Absolutely. To me, I think it's harder to it's harder to manage good players because you have more egos to manage. You have more time that you need to spend with those guys to be able to figure out how to get the most out of them. Yes, if you have a whole team of superstars, you roll the balls out there. Absolutely. But in 162 games, you can't just roll the balls out there. You got to make sure everybody's touching the rock. You got to make sure everybody's pushing in the right direction and not taking days off against the number one starter from the other team. Like, you got to push these guys. And to me, all the talk you hear of Dodgers players, it's an extension of their coaches, which is an extension of their manager.
And it all leads to a formula that's either successful or not. And obviously, players on the field are the biggest factor. But to me, it still has the same component of, okay, can the Tigers be really good at third base with what they currently have? Sure. But if you add Bregman, it increases your win probability. This is a talent, right? Just like a coach can increase your win probability on their decision-making, on how they operate personalities in the clubhouse, how they make lineup decisions within the front office, how they communicate information from the front office to their players. All of this leads to a formula that creates an end result, winning team or a losing team.